And welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz.
I am here.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
I am also here.
It is Monday, April 17th, 2023.
Nice.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. We post videos. The latest video is about Scorn, getting into the art style and digging into the metaphor in Scorn. Patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse, where you can support us for $2, $4, $7, or $10. You can get your name in the credits. You can get early access to videos. You can get access to our Discord server, where we don't ever leak top secret Pentagon papers. We promise. But hey, we get more members. We'll see.
Maybe somebody will slide us a little something.
Yeah, you never know once you get a bunch of people in there. But for now, we are a national security non-threat for now. Okay. We've got a lot of news to get into. We're going to talk about. We got actually a ton of news to get into. But we're going to talk games first. Connor, do you want to?
Just that little bit of Super Smash we were playing right before the show.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
No games.
Fun stuff still, huh?
Yeah.
Good.
Smash is
Glad to hear.
Yeah.
Smash is eternal.
It really is.
Smash is love. Smash is life.
Richard?
I've been playing more Resident Evil, still going through that second playthrough, and I kind of, I don't want to say have screwed it up, but they made it more difficult to get all the trophies in the remake compared to the other games. And I think if I really want to get all the trophies, which I really want to do because it's a Resident Evil game and I've platinumed a couple of Resident Evil games. If I really want to do, it's probably going to be like at least 4 or 5 playthroughs.
Okay.
Because you have to do, there's a trophy to get a playthrough to not use any healing items.
Oof.
Oh
There's
my
a
God.
there's a playthrough to only use your pistol. There's a playthrough to never talk to the merchant.
Yeah.
But you can do all 3 of those at once if you do an assisted run. An assisted run is basically like baby mode.
Yeah.
But it will your health will go back up if it's at low. Like it'll just recharge your health if it's at low. Enemies are weaker, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's also if you want to get the S+ ranks, which you have to beat the game in under I think 4.5 hours or 5 hours or something like that. And which there are nice skips and nice things to do, but I don't know if I'm going to focus on it, especially when we have Jedi Outcast is coming out next week, and then there's of course Zelda next month.
Nintendo game,
yeah, Street Fighter. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff coming out. So yeah, I don't know if I'll go through all of those. At least my second playthrough I'll go through, and I'll be happy with that. But besides Resident Evil 4, I got to experience a tiny bit of the PSVR 2.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
And I will experience more. It's just I haven't had time recently, but one came into the store. My coworker bought it. And he's also busy, but he knows how excited I am about VR, and he is. And he's like, hey, Horizon DLC is coming out. I'm going to focus on that. Go ahead and borrow the VR.
Oh, hell yeah.
I said, cool. So I got to experience that for a little bit, and I don't have too much to say on it. I have some impressions and some likes about it. Not too many dislikes, thankfully, but I played a little bit of Resident Evil Village on VR. And the setup is very easy. It's one cable. It still comes from the side, though. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Does it run it through a clip?
There is a clip, yeah.
Because it comes out of the headset.
Yes.
And you don't want it dropping down from the headset. Yeah, you want it to go around your head so that that it doesn't bend the cable or whatever.
Right. Yes, of course. Yeah, so it has that, which is fine. I just for me, my preference is I don't like the cable right here.
Yeah.
And it always kind of rubs against you or just kind of gets annoying. And I kind of wonder why they don't. I'm sure there's logical reasons why they don't just have the cable coming from the front or the bottom, because you're not going to do this and cut it or anything. And your hands will always
I think there are a lot of scenarios where that could happen.
There could be as well.
Any game where you're swinging something.
Oh, yeah. I like Beat Saber, but it's not one of the major games I think about. So that's an oversight on my part. But anyways, when you set up, it's really cool because, of course, they use the cameras like the Meta. So they make you look around your room to set the boundary. and it does this really neat like polygonal scan of your room. So if it sees the table, it will kind of create polygons around the table and like okay, here's your border. Or you can do the stationary boundary or draw it around like meta as well.
Okay.
It tests your the eye tracking.
Oh, man.
So it makes you look at all of the like points around the visor, and you can also from your peripherals when you do it, you can see the eyes moving with you. So it moves where you're moving, and so that was very, very cool. Regarding setup, that's pretty much it. It was very easy to do, very quick. And Village is neat so far. I did not get very far because it has a kind of a long opening.
It does, yeah.
And I got to the very first encounter in the village, and that was nice to play. However, I was seated, which I don't think is the best way to play that game. And so there were very awkward moments where the lichen type creatures would tackle me. And when they did, the animation would make it so that they were like too close, and I couldn't exactly like look like their body was like right here in my face, and I can see the cutoff of my arms forward.
Oh, okay.
So it's very awkward in that instance. However, the headset vibrates, which is neat.
Oh, I didn't know
yes,
that.
The headset,
I didn't know the headset itself had haptics.
Yeah, the headset has haptic feedback. That is cool.
Yeah.
That was very. It was just one of those small things. It's like, that's neat. The visor is way better than MetaQuest. It completely blacks out.
You don't have the eye, the let me get the body part correct. The nose.
Yes.
You don't get the nose hole, the nose bridge
you don't get the
hole.
nose. Yeah. And of course, the haptics are also in the controller, which the controller itself is very comfortable as well. The only downside with the controller, I feel, is that the triggers, which are normally where your middle fingers are on the Quest and others, they are flat buttons. They're not triggers. So I feel like I have to press them harder or...
Weird. Okay.
It's a very light button. It's a very light click button. So it's not very tactile. So I can never tell if I'm actually pressing it or not, which you generally are. So that's something I dislike about it. But I only played the first encounter for a little bit, and it was very late at night, and I was very tired, and kind of like, I'll get to this when I have a better chunk of time. I downloaded the trial for the Horizon VR game, as with the PlayStation Plus subscription, you get like a 4-hour trial or something like that. So I'll give that a shot, see how that works. But I would like to go through a little more of Village. They seem to have taken a lot of cues from the Resident Evil 4 VR version. And so I was testing out throwing weapons between my hands. And
Cool.
that was another thing. Even though I was playing sitting and I like had it set for sitting, the item stuff for Ethan was like right here in the middle of the chest. So I had to pull my gun out. I was like, it was a little awkward, but you can like open up your vests and like grab things, which is, they added that, which is really cool. But it was very neat, and I want to try it some more, but I just need a bigger chunk of time. That's all.
Okay.
But that's it.
Yeah, as far as VR controllers go, I really think the best VR controller that I have ever used was the Oculus Rift, the first one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the best one. I've never tried the Vive. Never really tried the Vive controllers or the PSVR 2. The first PSVR, and the Valve Index, I think the controllers are a little over-engineered and kind of weird to fit and figure out. They're good once you get to know them and once you start to use them, but I just don't think they're as intuitive as the first Oculus controllers. I think were like as good as it's gonna get.
Is it one of those, unless a developer is actually going to use everything that they've created for it?
Yeah. So the Index controller has, it's amazing all the things it can do, but it's completely. But there's just no games that really take advantage of what it's capable of all the stuff that it's doing. Of
course.
There's also a little. There's a touchpad that's right below where your thumb is when you hold the controller. So most controllers, when you hold a controller, your thumb is on the joysticks. But with the Valve Index controllers, you can set your thumbs on the joysticks, but for whatever reason, my thumbs always tend to rest on where these little trackpads are. And the trackpads are elongated, so they're kind of like scrolling wheels, and that's what they're meant for. So when you're going through browsing the Steam store or whatever, you can just move your thumb down this little elongated touchpad, and it's like you're scrolling through a menu.
Very cool. Yeah.
But the problem is that your thumb will rest on that, and the controller will think that you are pressing it or something, and weird things happen. So one thing that constantly happens with me is I will go to turn down the volume or turn it up on my index, and I can't click on the thing to turn the volume up and down. I'm like, why the hell can't I click on this? And it's because my thumb is resting on the trackpad, and so because I'm pressing the trackpad, my index thinks I'm doing something else. So it's not letting me touch the volume button until I take it off the trackpad, and then I can touch the volume button just fine. So there's little miscellaneous things like that happen a lot. But the only problem I had with the Rift controllers was that the sensor ring goes underneath, so every time you needed to stack your hands or something, the controller, there's a good chance the controllers would clash there. So you had to be careful with that. Yeah. So any game where you had to reload guns, or if you were two hands holding a sword, something like that, you kind of had to be careful.
Yeah.
So there is no perfect controller, but looking back at all the controllers that I've tried and stuff, it just feels like the best. It was kind of like with the Xbox 360. It was like the Xbox 360's controller, I feel like, is pretty much the perfect controller. The D-pad and stuff got better as time, but like that evolution from there to where we are now with Xbox controllers, it's like, okay, this is probably the best one. The DualSense is awesome, but there's things about the DualSense that are weird and stuff like that, and there's a bunch of other controllers, but I kind of feel the same way with the Rift controller. It's like they had it as close to perfect as they could. There's other designs, but the other designs have awkward things about them that I don't think you get quite with the Rift. Unfortunately, the Quest 2 controllers are way cheaper and way lighter. They have the same ergonomic design, so you don't lose anything there. But like with even like the battery pack, with the Rift controllers, it's magnetic, so it's really easy to take off and stick on.
Oh, very nice.
But with the Quest 2 controllers, they're just little clips, and they feel really like they're going to break every single time.
They're also terrible to put on and take off. They're awful.
So, and that's just because they were selling a cheap headset, because they give Facebook out for free, but they can't give a VR headset out for free. So they cut costs and tried to make an economically as close to free VR headset.
It just sucks because sorry to interrupt, because those Quest controllers, man, if you break one or lose one, it is very expensive to replace. It's like $120 plus to replace one side.
Terrifying.
Real quick, I just wanted to throw in real quick with the Valve or the Index controllers. When I was using it for Half-Life Alyx and the Half-Life VR mod, one thing I noticed is I naturally roll my fingers in a little bit.
Yep.
And they would always brush against the sensor pad that's on the side of the controller, and so I would be grabbing random things. And it feels like you're supposed to be just straight hand the entire time until you need to do something, which is very unnatural feeling.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, kind of, like the idea is that your hand is sort of at like a loose, like half moon shape. But my hands sort of, because it's a controller, automatically curl around
so
something.
I go to grab it. Yeah,
it's like as a reflex because I'm holding on to something. Yeah, I think it's a great headset.
It's probably a learning curve thing that as you get it more, use it more, you start to understand.
Yeah, and the problem with that is you can't, unless they were planning on releasing a Knuckles controller 0.2 or whatever, 2.0. It's not like you can just iterate and throw new controllers out all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of games that I've been playing, so I have forgotten to mention this the past couple of weeks, and I need to mention it. I finished Disco Elysium.
Hey, good job.
Awesome. It was really, really good. I thought the ending was a little weird, kind of rushed in a weird way. But other than that, the ending was good. I got an ending that was bittersweet, mostly good, but there was a couple witnesses that like escaped or something. because of certain decisions that I made.
Okay.
So it wasn't like the 100% perfect, you knew the entire story ending. But as far as getting everything correct and making the best of the situation, it was good. And Kit and Henry were friends at the end, good friends, and even hinted that they wanted to continue working together. Kit Kitsuragi is one of my favorite characters of all time.
Awesome.
Very much a Spock and Kirk relationship. Henry being much more Kirk, and Kit Kitsuragi being being much more like Spock. So yeah, really enjoyed that. And I would love to go back to it one day, but there's so much in Disco Elysium, but it would be fun to try and go back and play it in a different way. And then I started, so let's see, I've been playing Everspace 2, a crap ton of Everspace 2. Everspace 2 keeps getting better and better and better and better. There are like 5 or 6 star systems. I am 20 hours in, and I just got to the 3rd star system. So I think a couple of the star systems are like, what's that term? Stuff to do after you've completed the game. You know.
Endgame.
Endgame stuff. Yeah, I think it's maybe endgame stuff because you can keep leveling up your ship and getting better equipment and stuff like that. But so far the story is interesting. The combat, the combat in the first Everspace was constantly like pedal to the metal because it was a roguelike, right? So it's like every combat situation you could die. Stakes are always super high, so you have to be careful. Everspace 2, it's an open world, so the context is different. So not every single combat encounter is going to be super intense. You know, if you die, you lose everything because you can just reload a save. But what they did to sort of pick up on that intensity is they made dangerous areas. So they made like zones that you unlock where it's a really difficult group of enemies. And that's where the combat, because you have you have secondary weapons, you have different equipment like shield boosters and things that you don't necessarily have to use. And when you're going through like normal combat, I never use them, but it's these boss fights where you just go through all of your like damage limiter and energy boosters, and you're just going through everything. You empty out on your secondary weapons, you're completely out of ammo, that sort of thing. It's these boss fights where that really gets intense, and it's so freaking good. So I'm glad that they did that, because that intense, what's that term? Knockout, drag out, whatever, fight, which was like every couple minutes in the first Everspace because it's a roguelike. They sort of took that and then placed it in optional areas that you can go to. And they did a good job with that. 2 other games real quick. I picked up Vampire Survivors.
Awesome.
Very, very good. Insane.
On Steam, right?
Yes, on Steam.
Of course. It's a perfect Steam Deck game.
Yes. I have been... so, a few things. I feel like you have to have garlic as a weapon.
Yeah,
garlic is like a little
at first, yes,
zone around you that kills everything. So there's this guy, Po Racho.
The old man, right?
It was awesome. Yeah. First, hell of a name. Second, he starts with garlic, right? So every other character starts with different weapons. He starts with garlic, and all you have to do is just walk at enemies. You don't have to aim because it's this zone around him. So, and because of this, you level up really quickly, and then that is a feedback loop where you level up quickly, and then... And Vampire Survivors is like a race against the clock, because as time goes on, certain events trigger at certain times. So you want your level to be high enough to survive those events, whatever. So the faster you can kill enemies, the more levels you get, the better chance you have at surviving those events. And this guy, Po Racho, who's the guy that's holding his back and he has a cane. I feel like today, you know those memes that it's like a bunch of video game heroes like Kratos and Master Chief, and it's like, pick one to defend you, the rest come to kill you. You know, it's like Po Racho. Kratos can come to kill me. I need Po goddamn Racho. No, but I feel like you have to have garlic because it's such a useful, easy weapon. You just have to walk around, and you get things so quickly. It's encouraging that you say it first, because maybe there is a ton of stuff to unlock. I am amazed how much stuff there is in this game. That's $5, and right now it's on sale for like $3 or something.
And the DLCs are like $2 each. Yeah.
But I'm having a ton of fun with that. I have made it to 30 minutes. The Grim Reaper thing came out, took me out in a second. Felt like a sniper just took me out, and they're like, "You're done." And I was like, "Oh, damn, okay." And then just today, I got to 29 minutes and like 58 seconds before I got killed, which I knew I was going to die anyway, but I wanted the death to be to the Grim Reaper, not to enemies. But yeah, I have gotten a couple of times now where the screen is just filled with enemies, and it's just numbers everywhere.
That stupid endorphin, like, like this is so
and you
nice.
just hear like
so great
as enemies die, and you just see numbers everywhere. And I got to it was actually one really, really interesting cycle where there's this weapon, this like diamond weapon that shoots out and it goes really far, really powerful, kills a bunch of shit, but it only fires at intervals, right? So I have the garlic, I have this weapon. And so at one point today, the enemies filled the screen surrounding me, and they're just dying on this garlic, but they would close in really close to Po Racho, and then I would fire this diamond weapon, and it explodes on impact. So I stood next to a wall, so it would hit the wall and go and bounce, and so all of a sudden there'd be a big explosion in the center of the screen, and it would kill way more of the enemies. And then like 2 seconds would go by, 3 seconds, the enemies close in, and then it'd come again and blow them all back. And that went on for like a good minute, where it's this wave of like in and out, which is really neat. Yeah, really enjoying that. And that is something where it's like, oh man, I have 20 minutes to fill. Yep. Hell yeah.
Yes. Yep.
I want to read real quick the most helpful review on Steam for Vampire Survivors. Garlic is my life. My love, my life, my everything.
Yes, garlic is amazing. It is amazing. And it's tasty, too, in real life. So, good there, too. One other game. So I've always wanted to play it. It came out last year. Never got around to it. Picked it up for the Steam Deck. Signalis.
Yes.
Don't know if you have heard.
My good friend beat that game. He greatly enjoyed it.
Yes. So do you know what it is?
It's like a pseudo PS1 throwback horror-esque game, right?
Yeah, so
psychological horror.
It is very good, but as soon as you play it, you'll get, it's a horror, it's survival horror. But once you play it, you're like, oh, it's this. You'll know instantly. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it because I just knew it was a horror game, and I went into it, and as soon as I encountered a few things, I was like, oh, instantly I understood like what I was going to be doing in the game. Mm-hmm. But that is a phenomenal game. The ambiences are amazing. The art direction is amazing. It's super creepy sci-fi story about like some underground factory that you are an android and there are apparently humans, but everyone who works here is a woman with black hair. You're not sure if it's cloning or what. There's this
it's stupid.
reminds me of Ex Machina, right? Have you ever seen the movie Ex Machina? Mm-hmm. Well, what was I going to say? There's this weird undercurrent of fascism because there's a war going on, and you keep finding documents like about the state, our glorious nation, that kind of thing. You read about censorship and how like certain words cannot be said. The state has declared this word obscene or whatever, stuff like that. So there's this weird fascist government thing that you're not quite sure what your relationship to it is. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that. I've always wanted to play it, and then as soon as you start it, it sounds like Alien. You hear the clicks and like
the keyboard, yeah,
like all the different alien like computer sounds, and it's like okay. And then as you get to play the game more, there's a lot of different things. So I'm really excited to dive into that more. Okay, let's go to the news. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Okay, so we're going to start off with a story by Brendan Sinclair for GamesIndustry. I believe it was his weekly game news rundown. The beginning of it was sort of its own section. The title is "How Does Zynga Hunt for Whales?" So Sinclair sat through a GDC presentation by Zynga Vice President Gemma Doyle titled "Learn How VIP Management Can Change Your Company's Revenue Footprint." There's a lot here, so I'm going to go through all these notes and try to be brief and not overcomplicate things. So Doyle runs Zynga's VIP management operation, where high-spending players are given personal account managers they can call whenever they have an issue, access to special promotions, and weekly sweepstakes for free vacations and luxury cars. Doyle came to the games industry from the gambling industry. A tidbit from Sinclair: free-to-play publishers don't use the term whales much anymore, at least not publicly. Instead, the new euphemism is VIP. So Gemma Doyle, I'm assuming it's Gemma Doyle, VIP of this service, where if you're a high spender for a Zynga game, Zynga, prolific mobile publisher, whatever, high spender, they'll sort of give you preferential treatment through this VIP program. So reading straight from the story, quote, "A key aspect of the VIP program is that it's not just lavishing attention and gifts in a show of gratitude to loyal customers for long-term retention. It is also trying to maximize their spending in the here and now. Whatever outreach account managers make to whales is collaborated to specific ends and informed by data science modeling. Zynga has a model that identifies people on a trajectory of being a high-level spender that's slowed down, and if they see that, an account manager will contact them and find out what's going on. They also have the same model for people who start to not play as much, where they'll get a call from an account manager following a script to, quote, get them back on track, end quote. In the presentation, Doyle said, quote, "We've done so much experimenting at Zynga with VIP. We know what's the frequency of contact. We know what call types work. We know what times to call. We know exactly who to call and when. We know who has a higher propensity to be more susceptible to our call," end quote. Sinclair ended the piece saying, and I think this is a good summarization, "The relationships companies like Zynga cultivate with whales are built around providing the right stimuli at the right time to elicit the desired response. They are exceedingly manipulative and ultimately dehumanizing, treating people less like individuals with agency that matters and more like rats in a Skinner box." A Skinner box is, you've probably seen something similar. It's like a little box where you put, any animal, but like a rat in it, and there's a button. If the rat presses a button, some food comes out of a tube or something, and you teach the rat to keep doing that thing so it knows where to get the food, something like that. Right. Okay. So this is why mobile sucks. But do you guys have anything you would like to say?
I'm actually quite stunned by this story. Sorry, I read it with you right now. I admit I didn't read this beforehand, but I had no idea, and I'm sure obviously a lot more people don't know that this is going down, but it, for some reason, unfortunately makes a lot of sense that they would start to do this due to the fact that, and we've already said it, and what was it? Gemma Doyle came from the gambling industry.
Yeah.
That this is gambling. This is the exact same thing. And I'm very certain that a lot of their clientele, because Zynga's best games are Farmville, Tomb Blast, like those very slot machine like games, that their demographic are older people who don't have anything to do, like, and just kind of sit around, just throwing their checks.
Yeah, people with disposable incomes or whatever. And that's why, so I think when it comes to microtransactions, you can't point fingers at the people facilitating it.
Right.
Or not facilitating, I'm sorry. You can't point fingers at the people that have the money that are spending it. I don't think that's useful. I think that's just when people get frustrated. They think that going to the source of it solves something when it doesn't, because companies understand, I think that they could have a sustainable business and not take advantage of these people, but they would rather just take advantage of these people. So these are the things that they do. I think this is something that game executives should have to answer for. We know King is the crown jewel of the Activision Blizzard Microsoft deal, right? So Phil Spencer, hey, you talk about Xbox's responsibility as one of the big video game companies and stuff like that. What do you have to say to this? Is it okay that you poke and prod customers like they're lab rats? Is that something you really want? And the industry is perfectly fine with just talking about it out in the open at a GDC press conference, which is nice, because then it's nice to have this nakedly unethical behavior just sort of out in the open display, because at least we know it's there, and then it makes you wonder what kind of stuff goes on without people knowing. This isn't gaming, this is just gambling. And so it's terrifying to think that these kinds of economies are the kinds of economies that game executives want to try and extend into other areas of gaming that aren't mobile. And that's what frustrates me when people talk about mobile, when there's this pushback against mobile as like there's nothing wrong with it, or I don't know. That's a bad way to define it, I guess. I don't know. My attitude toward mobile games comes across like a prejudice, not because I don't think the device itself, I have any problems with like the device itself, but the economies that run the device, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And because those economies are so lucrative that a game executive sees it's working over here and says, okay, but how do we push this into Destiny 2 and, or whatever other games?
Right.
And it makes me wonder, like, at what point does Bungie or somebody at Sony decide we need account managers, and does that already exist? I don't know. But that's something that cannot sit. If we're talking about a games industry that's trying to get better at treating its employees well, trying to dig out like sexism and trying to dig out crunch and stuff like that, this can't exist in that industry, because this is just another form of manipulation. It's another form of, I think, unethical business. So I don't know, all that stuff, it just terrifies me. And so I guess what I was trying to say with the mobile prejudice thing is, I think there are people out there that think people's reaction to like a game being announced as a mobile title is sometimes over the top, right? And in some ways, I think it is. The guy on stage at Diablo Immortal's reveal did not deserve all the hate he got. He said, "Don't you guys have phones?" But I'm sure he didn't decide. It wasn't his decision to have a Diablo mobile game, right?
Right.
And so that reaction was directed at the wrong person. But I don't think the reaction came from a totally wrong place, because economies like this don't emphasize games. They just emphasize finding a couple whales and just extracting money from them. And is that the games industry that we want? Like, I don't know. Because in this games industry, Elden Ring can't exist. It just can't.
It can't.
Zynga could not produce Elden Ring because you can't extract money from that like you can whatever the fuck they produce. So we have to ask ourselves, what kind of games industry do you want? And if you say, well, Tyler, this is the mobile industry, but the problem is you can see with Star Wars Battlefront 2, they tried to put a mobile economy into a game. It didn't work. There are mobile economies in games right now.
There are, absolutely.
But it's like, so this isn't going to be contained like a quarantine in mobile. Executives see this. They say, just like with genres, where's our looter shooter? Where's our this thing's, where's our battle royale? And then all of a sudden you get Anthem or whatever else, So that's what's worrying about this. And man, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to sit through that. I don't know how you could go to something like GDC in an industry that is so concerned with reform, with inclusivity, diversity, all these like really progressive ideals, and has not handled any of them perfectly. And then something like this, which is just straight up corpse bar dabo, like gambling. So that, I don't know, it bothers me. And again, I think high level executives need to be pressed on this kind of shit. I think Phil Spencer should have to answer for this. Strauss Zelnick definitely should have to answer for this, you know? Because I think this is clearly brings up all kinds of ethical issues. Anyway, sorry, that's my tirade. But yeah, this is one of those reads where you read it and it just makes you feel
uncomfortable,
icky. I mean, that quote, we know exactly who to call and when. We know who has a higher propensity to be more susceptible to our call.
Right.
That's like a CIA agent who's trying to extract information. We know when to call and we know who can press to get the information. But we're talking about a mobile game, which is just terrifying, and you don't want that in the industry.
And it's weird because it feels like that's them saying the quiet part out loud. I mean, it is, but it is, but in the sense that, like, man, people worry about, you know, TikTok connecting to your Wi-Fi to steal your information. And it's like, what are these guys? Like, these guys are doing the exact same thing, but easier, just because it's a game. You know,
they're not tapping into your Wi-Fi; they're tapping into your bank account.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, with your permission. They are the vampire at the door.
And even creepier, they're tapping into your psychology.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to fake, and again, this isn't what I think. The word community often gets overblown.
Yeah,
the community. It's like, it's meaningless now, like a lot of other words on the internet.
They're
and
victims.
What was that?
I said they're victims in the community.
And I think one reason is because you have game companies that use the word community, so like family, right, so liberally that it's like, well, what does that even mean now? And of course, it's not like they use that word from a sincere place, because community to them is just people we can siphon money from, right? Or it's like relationship. These account managers probably, I would assume, portray their relationships with their clients as a real relationship, when it's not. It's a mathematical relationship to make sure you're spending so much.
Yes.
It's not a relationship to make sure you're doing okay, or that everything's going swell, or any kind of actual human relationship. It's purely carnal. It's purely transactional. And I don't know, do we want game companies doing that? I don't think so.
Funny you mention that, because Doyle actually said something like that in one of the quotes, where Doyle brags about how thoroughly Zynga, the Zynga apparatus, boils down its biggest customers to little more than numbers on a spreadsheet.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And that's the horror of like the mobile economy. And that's why people freak out over Diablo Immortal. And yeah, I would really implore anybody who's in a position to talk with Phil Spencer or to talk with a Bobby Kotick to say, what do you have to say about this shit? Especially Phil Spencer, who comes across as this nerd who wears blazers and just wants to play games and wants you to be able to play games wherever you are, man. Like, okay, but Phil, what about this? Because this is clearly nakedly not good. And you can't tell me that Zynga is the only company doing this. There's just no way they're the only company. No,
absolutely not.
This. Yeah.
Well, they were hosting a panel on how to do this at your company.
Maybe they do it the best. Maybe they do it the best. I don't know.
They're doing it the most effectively, at least, since they're the ones hosting and showing other companies how to do it.
Richard.
Lily Gao, the voice actress for Ada in Resident Evil 4, has spoken out against her complainers,
harassers.
Harassers. Yeah, that's great. Lily Gao was harassed on social media by a bunch of gamers, and she unfortunately closed her Instagram account over her portrayal of Ada Wong in Resident Evil 4. She has now posted a statement, which we will read some of. Quote, being the first Asian actor to portray Ada in the Resident Evil games is an honor. While criticism is expected, it is not the first time an actor of color faces racist and sexist harassment for simply participating. Inauthentic casting perpetuates an unhealthy image that further dehumanizes the community they seek to reflect. It is time we stop only capitalizing on the sexualized, eroticized, and mysterious Asian women and make a space to honor every kind of Asian woman. My Ada is a survivor. She is kind, just, intelligent, and funny. She is unpredictable, resilient, and absolutely not a stereotype. End quote.
Yeah. So one thing that sucks about social media is that I feel like, and I try to stay away from it. So maybe it's just the stuff that I happen to see, which is always bad stuff because stuff I have to look up for this podcast. But it's like everything is instantly an argument or debate, and like sides are drawn. There's no leveling with people or trying to understand people or giving people the benefit of the doubt, right? That like, where are they coming from? And so like the top comment on this on Instagram, at least this morning, was, it had nothing to do with your race, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, slow down, Turbo, because you didn't see all the harassment that she got. Is it impossible that a lot of the harassment that she got was sexist and racist? Probably not, because that's sort of the nature of the internet. So if you were to get harassment like that, would it be unreasonable to put a statement like this out there? I don't think so. There's like no, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? There's just no, it's instantly, your argument is that it was racism when we were just, you know, when the argument was that your performance was flat. But it's like, I don't think it's as simple as that. Or I don't think that's necessarily what she's talking about here. But at the same time, I do think her description of Ada is interesting, because I did not think Ada was funny. I thought definitely Ada was interesting. Kind and just, I don't know. But again, that's neither here nor there. But I hope she returns, because at the end of Resident Evil 4, something happens that I'm pretty sure didn't happen in the first one.
It does.
It does?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about.
We're going to spoil Resident Evil 4 here for a second.
I mean, it's been 20 years.
The helicopter turned around.
Yes, yeah. That happens in 4.
That happens in 4?
That happens in 4.
Oh, okay. Okay, never mind then. But I never played Resident Evil. Well, I did play 5, but Leon's not in 5, right?
No, Leon and Ada are not in 5.
Are they in? I know
They're
Leon's
in 6.
Yeah, okay, so 6 picks up where 4 leaves off, kind of?
It's years later, but it's really not great. I mean, the story-wise, it's not great.
Okay.
But man...
But I thought her portrayal of an Ada that is more closer to like Chloe from Uncharted, someone who kind of feels bad about the things that they do, you know, and kind of wants to be good, but there's like other forces.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, Ada has always been, from her first iteration in Resident Evil 2, the original, I've always seen Ada as somebody who, it's her job. Like, whatever she is paid, like, that is her job. But there is, you know, at the end of Resident Evil 4, the quick, billions of people will die. No, like, we're not going to do this. Like it obviously didn't go down that way, but her split-second decision to change the plans, like, kind of proves that whole just thing.
Okay,
in my mind. However, it's not like, it doesn't absolve anything because of everything else she's done prior.
Sure.
Because, you know, she's responsible for, you know, G-Virus and Resident Evil 2 and, you know, taking that for money from other people. But bottom line, to get back to like Lily Gao, like, once again, playing through the entire game, and it sounds like you beat it recently as well.
I did.
Her performance was, for me, what was, I guess, expected. I wasn't going into Resident Evil being like, I'm going to get incredible performances a la Last of Us and Uncharted and stuff like that. Get what I want, what was expected. I thought her portrayal as Ada Wong was fine. Was just exactly what the game needed. Of course, everyone, if there is a prior installment or a prior archetype, everybody will latch on to that and only want that, and that's why you should never have expectations.
Yeah, I definitely, I think the sexist harassment, I think that's an interesting, because one of the quotes that made rounds was, what was it? It was one of the things that one of the comments, it was a couple weeks ago now, I'm going to paraphrase, was essentially that Ada wasn't like hot enough or wasn't seductive enough or whatever, right? And it's like, again, there's your preference, right? Because Ada was way more ridiculously like sultry and seductive. And then there's, I'm going to harass you because you didn't do it like this way.
Yes.
And that's where it gets into like, well, why is that? Why is this take on a character like offensive to you?
Yeah, right.
Why does it rise to that level of, and yeah, I definitely think there's some sexism in there. If the woman's not, getting me off, then I'm going to get angry on the internet. Like I 100% think that there's some truth behind that, that existing. But anyway, yeah. Are we ready to move on?
Yep.
Nintendo has hit a Zelda YouTuber with copyright claims. So Point Crow is a YouTuber that made videos, among them multiplayer mods for Breath of the Wild. Point Crow has made Zelda content for years, including modding content, but it wasn't until early April that his multiplayer mod that he
created.
Did he create it, or did he have it?
He was the one who released it, so I assume he.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if he created it or if he, what's the word I'm looking, commissioned someone to create it and then made a video about it. I don't know. Regardless, I'm going to get back to the notes here. It wasn't until early April that his multiplayer mod video got a copyright strike, and then things went worse. Since then, Nintendo has claimed many more videos, most with mod in the title, but not all. Other YouTubers have had similar things happen to them without much explanation. Point Crow says Nintendo claimed one video and then bundled other videos into a separate claim, deliberately putting his channel in danger of having 3 copyright strikes. If you have 3 strikes, your channel goes down, or whatever exactly. I don't remember off the top of my head. Also, in somewhat separate news, Nintendo won a court case against share hosting site Discourse. A French court ruled Discourse was liable for failing to remove or to block access to pirated Nintendo copies via a separate share hosting site. Discourse must pay Nintendo 467,000 euros, which is about $511,000. They can appeal. I have no idea. It was a French court, so if this happened in America, I had no idea the nuances of the law, let alone in France. So we'll leave it at that.
They'll just strike and threaten to burn down the government, and everything will turn out fine. Sharpen the guillotines.
We are in an age now of like mass communication. Obviously, we have been for a while.
Yes.
Unlike the 80s and the 90s, when Nintendo can get away with stuff like this, and they still are today, obviously. But word is spreading fast, and we are seeing people understand what Nintendo is about now, and I think that this sucks because I don't believe mods like this, most mods, ultimately, if the companies or developers work with these modders, can turn a profit, like can be beneficial to all parties involved. And so it sucks that they keep attacking people who want to make unique content of the games they love. But if Nintendo stopped attacking people and let people work with their properties like Sega does all the time, that game that they released on for April Fools, the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, that was a fan thing. And they were like,
"Oh, that was
yeah, it was a fan thing, like a bunch of fans who were like making Sonic stuff. That like Sega came to them and was like, hey, let's So they made a game. But I'm getting out of time. But what I'm trying to like say is that pretty soon Nintendo I feel is going to start to get a lot of backlash for the practices that they have. I don't know how far it'll go because Nintendo is basically the Disney of video games, and you can't really mess with them. They have enough money. But I was just basically trying to say that it would be more beneficial for Nintendo and other companies to work with the people who make this stuff, because in the end, that can only mean more money. For instance, Falcom, there's a game called Ys. Somebody made a multiplayer mod for Ys 8 because you switch between characters on the field and they all have their own movesets. Somebody found a way to create a multiplayer mod since everybody had the movesets available already. Everyone can control those characters. Nothing happened. They let the mods work. But if everybody's been asking for a multiplayer Zelda. So if people hear about this mod, maybe I'll pick up Zelda now because I can play with my friends.
Sure.
I don't see a downside to it. Legally wise, there's probably tons of stuff they have to get over. It's not as simple as saying, yeah, we'll use this mod, officially release it and whatnot. But Nintendo needs to change with the time because there are way too many people who love their stuff and want to create their own things for it within the realm of Nintendo.
Yeah, so the Nintendo with copyright, it's just draconian.
Yes.
I know it's a different country, so I don't. You know what? I don't
mindset
know.
too.
But
Different country,
it's hard for me to believe that a dude making videos on YouTube somehow threatens Nintendo's
bottom line
viability as a company.
Yes.
And isn't that the point of copyright? The idea that you can hurt your livelihood, it can hurt. To me, that's just a draconian rich company who wants everything to be kept in order, is very conservative, is very rigid and dogmatic, and that's the way they are, and they're not gonna budge. And I think it's important to note that Nintendo does not care about you.
No.
People, I don't know, this idea that there are companies out there that are good or bad, no game company gives a shit about you. There are people at that company that want you to have a good time, that put their heart and soul into making games, and those are good people. But the corporation as a whole is an unfeeling, inhuman entity that is out there. It's a giant monster that is out there to consume for its own good. So I think it's important to remember that. Your point about mods, I think, is a good one, because we could have an entire podcast on games that are only around and that people continue to play only because of the mods. Skyrim, Arma, a bunch of Paradox games, all the Paradox games.
Every Paradox game. Paradox Interactive itself is a mod.
I mean, we just talked about it last week, but Sims is another one.
Sims. And then there are games that are
Stardew Valley.
Yeah, exactly. So it's now, why would you be adverse to that? I think I would guess it essentially comes down to there is somebody who may profit off of your game in a way that you're not profiting off of it, and that's a problem for you. Or that you have a walled garden, and that by having a gate here and here, you have in your mind that now you have these multiple fractures or weak points. So you just decide to have none rather than try and work out ways to have these gates and have these different resources. But yeah, I think, and also the way that they did the copyright strike is horrible. I don't know it. I feel like you have to do that on purpose, right? To purposefully do 2 copyright strikes. I feel like that's something that is malicious. Yeah. And so, but it doesn't matter, because Tears of the Kingdom is gonna be the best-selling game this year. It's probably gonna win Game of the Year.
Yeah.
So that's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
And people from 6 years old to 46 years old are gonna buy it and play it. And that's just the position that Nintendo is in, and that's good for the developers, because their game deserves to be played and praised, because I'm sure it's gonna be amazing. But yeah, Nintendo really deserves, I think, on a larger scale, more scrutiny. And this super draconian attitude it has toward, this is the world. Content creation, new media, this is the world. you can try to fight from it. You can try to run from it. You can be the gang and Red Dead Redemption 2 and fight nature and all that stuff. But this is just the world. And I don't know, Richard. I don't know if I agree that they should. I don't know if it'll happen though, because they are Nintendo.
Yeah.
So it's like,
well, it's going to happen eventually that things are going to change because, frankly, the executives over there, the executives running Nintendo that are these hard-nosed draconian CEOs will eventually die and people will take over. Sure. Those people will have different mindsets. And it may take many generations, but eventually things will change just because that's nature. That's the way of the universe. Entropy. Things change.
Maybe for a long time then. But
yeah, for sure.
What were you going to say? You got to off.
I've said many times before. I know it's terrible. I've said many times before. I was like, I can't wait till Miyamoto dies. But, I mean, there are a lot of things that you can pinpoint. So it's like, no, he affected this thing. It was bad because of these things, So it's just the old guard. Get out of there.
Yeah, sure.
That's it.
And once again, what's this YouTube? Point Crow never ever encouraged pirating Nintendo games.
Mm-hmm.
Probably didn't even encourage emulating Nintendo games. But I'm going to tell you right now, it is morally to steal
correct.
It is immoral to download pirated Nintendo games.
The ethical choice. The correct ethical choice to steal from Nintendo.
In our opinions.
What did I
I don't think that's an opinion. That is fact.
That is ordained.
I actively steer away from using Nintendo music on my other show because you never know. I'm just not gonna.
Oh shit! I gotta get used to talking about that at the top. I'm sorry.
Right.
I suck as a host.
That's all right.
I drive the bus right into a cliff.
I'm not gonna open that can of worms. There are times where I will, but it's so weird because it's like I see there's a 3-hour Nintendo SNES music mix on YouTube, almost 1 million views, and it's just sitting there. He has ads. He's making money. It's just like. Okay. and it's like people will here's this really cool Mario Kart I made, and it's like, fuck you, Nintendo's like, you're done.
Comes down. Yeah, it's very what's the word I'm looking for? Not precocious. Not gonna. Nope. Not gonna.
Yeah. All right.
There is a method to the madness behind how shit like that is done.
Oh yeah.
Because the guy that's doing the 3-hour Nintendo music medley and raking in millions of views, it is more cost beneficial to Nintendo to wait for it to hit a certain point and then
do it. Yeah.
Because then it's the way at least American copyright law works is it's per infraction. So it's if you hit the million infraction mark, you're starting to get a lot more kickback.
Yeah, it's the target LP officer strategy.
I want to find this word I was going to use.
The califragilisticexpialidocious.
No, God damn it! It's a really good word that I like a lot.
Xylophone.
Not xylophone. It sounds like precocious. I'm pretty sure there's a P and a C in there somewhere. It means unpredictable. It's not precarious. Capricious. There we go.
Copernicus.
Capricious. I was going to start naming Italian food. Fettuccine. Gorgonzola. That's just a cheese. I don't know if it's Italian. Okay, moving on. GameFam has settled with settles an NLRB complaint. Some background, and I don't know if we covered this. I don't think we did. And this was all first reported by Polygon. So some background. Josh DeBoer, a game dev for GameFam, and they make stuff for Roblox, including Sonic the Hedgehog stuff.
Nice.
Says he and other employees were underpaid and talked with coworkers about pay. DeBoer then spoke with GameFam CEO Joe Ferencz about salaries. Hold on, I'll explain why I'm laughing in a second. Regarding his meeting with Ferenc, DeBoer told Polygon, he absolutely blew his lid at me. He was like, do you think it's good to go among your colleagues and spread dissatisfaction? You need to be seen as a leader if you want to stay here long, end quote. Later, DeBoer was placed on paid leave and took up the issues with the NLRB. Well, now GameFam has settled with the NLRB and has agreed to pay DeBoer $5,000 in bonuses and send an email to staff saying they will not say it is toxic or poisonous to talk to coworkers about pay. The reason I'm laughing is because, of course, the thing I thought of, he went to his boss. Listen here, hot dog. I'm sorry. We need that clip. Okay, I just thought we should touch on this because good. And that's something that should be normalized. And if game companies, especially CEOs, have problems with people bringing up pay, maybe you should just pay them more. Mm-hmm. Maybe give them better working conditions. How about that? Start there, and then after a while, if they're still complaining, then maybe you can talk to them about their complaints. But until then, why don't you address those complaints first?
And remember, people, no matter what your company says, it is perfectly legal to talk about pay on break time or off work hours.
Mm-hmm.
Do it then. They can't hold you liable for stuff you do outside of work.
Yep.
You could be right outside the door, off hours, talking about it loudly. You're off hours.
Before Disco Elysium, I was pretty cool. I played Disco Elysium. I got like 20 points in Communist. So if we want, we can go.
I'm very certain everybody who played that game at some point, it was just like, you're a communist. And it's like, oh.
Those dialogue options, let me tell you, some of the dialogue options were so clearly like, okay, that's the communist one. That's the fascist one. Yeah. And then after a while, they just get silly because I remember one of them was like, it's all the choices and you can tell which one is which ideology. But then the last one was like, I don't agree with any of these. I'm some other mysterious fourth thing. Like clearly the boring cop, whatever, centrist decision. Anyway,
the quote unquote apolitical person.
Hit the tidbits.
Real quick.
Oh, yes.
Gorgonzola. It is Italian.
It is Italian. There we go. Hey. Oh. What if I told you in this world there are bits and there are tids? And Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits.
It's not easy doing that, by the way. It's not easy finding the tids and the bits and putting them together.
I mean, you're the only man in the world.
It's kind of like, it's like perfection. Like I got like 30 seconds to like put all the pieces in the thing. It just blows up in my face. Sega has bought Rovio.
Hey.
Earlier last week, news hit Twitter that Sega was getting ready to purchase the Angry Birds creator Rovio for around $1 billion. That was first reported, of course, to the shock of many fans and news outlets. After several days, pretty much this morning, Sega confirmed that they have purchased Rovio for 706 million euros or $776 million. Although Discourse online was centered around confusion over the deal, it's pretty obvious that Sega is purchasing Rovio to build their expertise regarding mobile gaming.
That's what it's all about. It's right now. It's the mobile feeding frenzy. Everybody's out trying to get these mobile companies up because it's harder to develop. Ask PlayStation. It's harder to come up with mobile ideas and mobile infrastructure on your own when you can just be like, take two and just buy Zynga and slap your hands together and call it a day and hope that they harass their high-end players with luxury cars or whatever.
So weird.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
So weird. Anyways, well, speaking of that particular topic, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has been delayed to February 2024. After a very large negative response to the Suicide Squad feature for their very own State of Play, WB and Rocksteady have decided to delay Suicide Squad till next year. Quote, "We have made the tough but necessary decision to take the time needed to work on getting the game to be the best quality experience for players." The statement reads, quote, "Thank you for our amazing community for the continued support, patience, and understanding. There is much more to share in the months ahead while we look forward to seeing you in Metropolis next year," end quote. The online discourse for this one is convinced that this is to remove the much commented on live service approach that was revealed during the State of Play. However, those in the know, like Jason Schreier, have commented that it is not because of that, or at least they won't be able to completely overhaul the game in that amount of time. But other people are saying that they will, like other like people in the industry, the journalism, pseudo journalism. Okay. But it's also one of those like people will just say things. It just like when people come into my work.
That's what they do.
Yeah, people come into my way. Oh yeah, I heard this is it. Oh yeah, where'd you hear from? Huh? Some guy online? Like because that's what they always say the most weirdest shit. Anyways,
I hope that they. That's what I hope. Obviously, if that's not the case, then that's not the case. But is that still published by WB? Is that
Rocksteady? It's Rocksteady, but WB owns like DC properties for video games. So yeah,
would WB be the publisher there, or is that still?
Oh yeah, yes. I'm so sorry. Yes, WB is publisher.
Because WB's done a bunch of bullshit like this, especially with like the Shadow of Mordor, or whatever it was, the latest one. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was something that it wasn't necessary. It was like the Anthem situation where it wasn't like WB kicked in the doors and said, you need to do this. It was more of like hey, everybody, this is kind of what WB wants. They're not telling us explicitly, but maybe we should do this because it would help or whatever. But yeah, I hope they can make a good game.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. I just realized as I was reading this next tidbit that I pretty much only have half of it done, but I'm still going to do it anyways.
Oh boy, here we
go. The Meta Quest, Oculus Quest, had 6.370 million active users recently. Wall Street Journal reports cites that internal documents gave this and other information. Beat Saber has generated $225 million in lifetime sales by October of last year, 2022. And that the Meta Quest had sold nearly 20 million headsets, Quest headsets. But yes, as of recently, I forgot to put down the exact date. Yeah, over 6 million active users.
That's what making that headset super cheap does.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the whole thing. It's getting people into the ecosystem.
And I hope that the PSVR 2 can catch up to it because I know that the VR 1 sold over 4 million headsets. And that thing, I hate that thing. Like I owned one and I had a lot of fun with it. And now I see it at work, and anytime I see it, I just go, God, this was not great. How many cables there are, the maintenance, the hookup, it was just very rudimentary. And so now we've greener pastures. VR2 only has one cable. Plug it in. That's it.
Super Bunny Hop had one of my favorite lines about the PSVR, and he said, all your PlayStation's holes will be filled, which I thought was hilarious. What was I going to say? Oh, dude, I'm telling you, we talked about this months ago. PlayStation needs to figure out how to enable the PSVR 2 for PC.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I know that. I don't know the tech behind that. I know that's probably super complicated because you've got like firmware and Windows and other words that I don't know the definitions of. Man, if you can do that, that unlocks a whole new paradigm for the PSVR 2.
Absolutely. So I plugged in the headset, not at my home, but when I was at work, I plugged in the DualSense VR controller to the PC to charge it up because I needed a port, and I was like, I need to charge this. It read it. It had drivers for it.
Really?
Yes, it had drivers for the controllers, and it actually distinguishes between left and right. Like it says L and it says R for left and right.
Whoa, interesting.
And then I was like,
I wonder why.
I don't know. And I was like, wait a minute. So I went to go look it up, and other people, of course, already have plugged it into their PC to see what happens. It only recognizes it as another monitor. The headset only recognizes it as another monitor. So I don't know
what you'd have to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not even going to sit here and speculate.
Yeah, I have no idea either. I wouldn't know the first thing. But if it is possible, I think that's something PlayStation needs to do. Mm-hmm. But I don't think PlayStation will ever catch up with the Meta because with the Quest, I don't know if any headset will because it was super inexpensive. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like, I don't know, man, I'm kind of skeptical. It was successful, but was it retentive? A bunch of people got it. A bunch of people played Beat Saber. Mm-hmm. A bunch of people played that Battle Royale game, Player One or whatever.
That's a Quest game.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. The people that bought the Quest.
Oh, okay,
They sold a bunch of headsets, but how retentive is that?
I do have enough I do have enough calls about people wanting to sell their Quest, but of course, people are fickle. Like I have people. I have people like, you know, I know it's not a silly question, but it's just like, is it worth getting a PS5? And it's like, well, yes, like it is. You're paying $200 more to get a PS5 and you have a PS4. You're not losing anything. You're just gaining, you know? So even 3 years after the PS4 came out, in like 2016, I was getting guys trading in. They're just like, there's just nothing to play. And it's like, what?
You son of a bitch.
And yes, and I would sit here and be like, there's tons of stuff to play. There's just not stuff you want. So there are a lot of people who come in, and I've heard comments that are just like, yeah, there's nothing on the Quest. And it's like, well, there's absolutely tons. There's tons.
You're just stupid.
Can you smoke in your store? I know you can't because that's against Arizona law.
I was going to
You need to start. You need to be like the listen here, kid, like that. We're gonna round you out to really get like this grizzled like store owner. It's gonna be bad for your lungs, but it'll be worth it comedically. So.
I haven't exploded on people, but it's like, yeah, there are times people have like made me respond that is just like, come on, because if you came into my store and it's like I have stacks of games and you see me like you're gonna come up, can you look for 40 games for me? And it's like, dude, I'm doing something, please. Because I was doing a huge trade today, and a guy today was just like, hey, can you look for some games for me? It's like, yes, I'm sorry, give me a moment, man. Like I'm working. And it's like the way I responded to him, like I think I heard him say he was gonna give us a bad review. By the end of the transaction, he was fine because he was there long enough, and we cooled down, and we're like, hey, how can we help you, man? But still, it was just like, it's just like, please understand what I'm dealing with right now. You see like the stuff that has not been put away in pieces behind me. So it's whatever. Anyways, we were just talking about the VR. Yeah, that's all we were doing. And you made me go on a rant. Made me go on a rant.
Sorry. I find it fascinating. You know, you're like if Odo owned the bar on Deep Space Nine. I don't know. That's 2 Deep Space Nine references for no reason. What's the next tidbit, Richard?
Sorry. There's no Babylon 5 is better.
You're the only man. So I can do tidbits.
No, there's no more. I'm sorry.
I got okay. Go ahead, Connor.
All right. So, did you guys know, or rather hear, about the most recent Eve heist? Eve Online.
Oh, yes. I heard about it.
But I don't know how
the
this
most
works.
Boring heist in history happened.
What is it, 22 grand or something?
Not just that.
Oh, okay.
So the estimated total of in-game money and assets that were seized came out to about $22,000. This quote-unquote heist, I say that happened because they found a corporation that was minimally active, joined it, instituted a vote to change the leadership, waited for no one to respond because the players weren't actively playing.
Oh my lord.
Took leadership positions and siphoned everything out of the company.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my God.
They did everything by the book through the game's laws and the corporation's bylaws.
Imagine walking into a building. Is anyone else here? I'm gonna take everything.
Guess it's mine now.
Cue the Ocean's 11 music.
A little more conversation, a little more action, please.
Just walking out with a bag of like spaceships.
Yes. In game, they reportedly walked away with 130 billion ISK and seized assets worth roughly 2 trillion ISK.
I don't even know.
Which comes out again to about $22,300.
All right. Well, good for them.
This one is gaming adjacent. It deals with the Mario movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the song that was released, Peaches by Bowser, aka Jack Black. Fantastic song. You should listen to it. Also, the chord progression. Have you heard about this?
I have not heard.
It is the exact chord progression from Never Gonna Give You Up.
Really?
Yes,
it is note for note, not like perfectly like transposed. It's just the exact chord progression, Never Gonna Give You Up, which I think is beautiful, and I think 100% planned by Jack Black and his pianist that he was working with, because
sure,
it's great. Fantastic. Same key, everything.
There are so most celebrities and athletes, it's like if it came out that they were a bad person, it's like whatever. I don't want them to be that, but I'm not going to be personally distraught over it.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Perry, I don't know, just a random celebrity.
That's very random.
I don't give a shit if he's bad. I don't want him to be bad, but if he
Truth is, kid, game was rigged from the start.
But I tell you what, if it came out that Jack Black was
society would collapse.
I would be so sad because he's one of those celebrities that it's like he seems like a genuinely cool dude to hang out with.
If I remember correctly, his very first job was a commercial for Pitfall for the Atari 2600.
Oh yeah, and he swung across the
as a kid.
Yeah, that's right.
So Jack Black is video game related.
Yeah.
We'll have him on the show next week. We'll talk video games with Jack Black.
Jack, listen.
Follow us on Twitter. Are we done?
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. We'll see you next week.
Bye.